Welcome to the Home Service Contractor Blueprint by A2O Digital. Every episode will cover topics that impact all home service companies like marketing, sales tactics, operations, and more. Now, on to today's episode.
Your host today. I'm also the founder of A2O Digital and the business franchise owner for Precision Garage Door in the New York metropolitan area. On today's podcast, I'd like to welcome a friend, Ed Hessling. Ed's been part of the Precision Network since 2013, and he worked his way to the top where he's now an owner of the Precision Garage Door Central PA location. He obviously greatly values customer service and focuses on bringing leading quality to every customer's home. Ed always has led his team by example and has worked with them to cultivate the same values he has. He's always looking for ways to grow and improve in the home service industry. Ed, welcome to the podcast today. I really appreciate you agreeing to come on. I'm going to lead into this conversation with you how basically I really got to know you a little bit. We had a Northeast regional meeting back probably almost a year ago now. It's maybe a little more than a year now.
Yep.
But we had that Northeast regional meeting, and I don't know if that was the first time I met with you, but I think it was the first time where I really heard you say something that, like, I went, wow, this is interesting. And what I'm talking about has to do with hiring employees. We were talking about the frustrations of hiring employees, finding them, getting the right one the first time, so you don't have to go through a training process over and over again. And you stood up in that meeting and you told me about what you do in your location. And you said, I use Enneagram. And I went, what is Enneagram? And I didn't even know how to look it up. I couldn't spell it. I didn't know what Enneagram was, but I'd like to talk to you today a little bit about it and let some of the people that have a chance to watch this podcast potentially learn something about this process that you've used. And just for everybody that's listening today, we've incorporated it in our markets in the New York metropolitan area and have started utilizing everything that you've brought us. And it is very interesting. And we believe it's going to really continue to help us with the hiring and training of new employees. So with all that being said, as a business owner, I know, like, obviously one of the big challenges is trying to find people. Why don't you start, Ed, by telling everybody the story of how you got introduced to Enneagram?
It's a good story. First, Doug, thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be here and on your podcast. So I greatly appreciate our conversations with this. The story of how I came across the Enneagram. It's kind of a two-part story. So back in maybe 2013, 2015 area, when I first got into precision doors, I was dating a girl who wanted to know a little bit more about me because apparently what I was telling her wasn't good enough. And so she had me take the Enneagram test, and I didn't really think much of it. She brought up all this interesting stuff about me that she read when she read me my results. And I was like, yeah, that's accurate. That's accurate. Like, that's interesting. But I didn't care enough about the Enneagram at that time. And then
it described you, though.
It described me, though. Yeah, it described me to a T. And it was like it knew my whole life without having the conversation of getting to know somebody throughout their whole life, right? And fast forward a few years later, I went down to a precision door corporate meeting. This was at I think one of the Dolphin Dolphin or Swan hotels. I think this was back in 2018, 2019 time frame. And when I went down to this corporate meeting, I was in a position where I really wanted to advance my career in precision door. And I was thinking, how do I advance my career? How do I get to the next step? And my solution that I came up with at the time was, let me figure out what everyone who's here, what their pain is. Let me have some conversation with some owners, some managers. Let me figure out what their pain is. And I want to be the one to come up with a solution to that pain. And what almost everybody spoke about was employee retention and hiring and culture. I hire somebody and, within a month they quit. I can't keep employees for long. I'm rolling through employees, spending so much money training employees every 6 to 12 months. And it's bleeding me out. Right. And so that was a common answer with everyone. And, I never, at this point in my career, I wasn't involved in hiring. So I had very little experience with hiring. And I think that's kind of gave me the advantage because I can try to possibly look at the picture from a much broader perspective. And so when I met my partner, Steven, at this corporate event, and, he talked about opening up a market in the central PA area and asked if I was going to be interested, if I would be interested, since I live pretty close, if I'd be interested in starting it up with him. And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm down. Let's go. And that's when I kind of got my hands pretty green when it comes to hiring people. Steven,
you had to go out and start building.
Yeah, we had a crew up, and so at first we're hiring people, and I'm following Steven's lead. He's throwing out Indeed applications. People are coming in. We're doing the basic hiring stuff, just like everyone else does. Just have a conversation. You trust your intuition. You trust your gut. You trust your heart. You trust your head. I think this guy's a good pick. Let me go ahead and hire them. And I was at that point having kind of like the same issues that I heard everyone else was telling me about months prior. And so I was like, I still made a promise that I wanted to find the solution to this. So let me focus on this, and let me use Central PA as a trial and error place to see what I could find out, what I could utilize. And one day I thought about that test that my girlfriend at the time asked me to take. And I looked at my test results, and my test results were pretty old at that time. And so I was just curious. I was like, let me just take the test again and see if anything's changed. And I took the test again, and my results were still the same results, give or take a point or two, maybe. But so I was like, okay, so these results don't change. So they're more than just, it's possibly more than just DISC, because DISC may change due to the environment that you're in or the job that you have. This looked like it's something deeper than DISC. And so I made everyone in the company test it out. Like I had Steven take it. I had a few techs I had at the time take it. And then I just used it when I hired people. And at first I was comparing my results to everybody else because I thought very highly of myself as my accomplishments as a technician and an installer. And I felt like that I was kind of different from other technicians and installers. And I felt like my points and my results had something to do with that. And so I had to have a lot of heart-to-heart conversations with myself to diagnose each Enneagram result and figure out what makes this Enneagram result unique and how does it apply to my life. And so
Ed, excuse me for interrupting, but
yeah.
When you take the test, right, Enneagram breaks you into one of 9 different categories. Is that accurate?
Yep. Yes, it breaks you into 1 to 9 different personality types, and each personality type will have a score. So that way, what personality type you're really strong in and what personality type you don't have a whole lot of strength in. And so when I looked at the employees that I had at the time, the types or the test results and the employees that I felt like could do better, I focused on their Enneagram types, and I found common themes among those Enneagram types. And when I compared the Enneagram types on the employees who've done really well, I saw a common theme in those Enneagram types. And at that point, it was like, it almost felt like I cracked a code of some sort. I was just like, I could be onto something here, because this could be used way in the beginning when I'm hiring people, and I can know who they are before I even hire them. And their test results may help give me the insurance or security I need if I wanted to commit to the employee. And so fast forward, the next 2 years, and I've been having everyone take the test. And there's been a lot of promising people that have walked through the door, and the interview's gone really well, but their Enneagram results weren't what I was looking for the position. And I've had to say no to those people, because I've learned that people that I have said yes to, I'll give it a chance, I was proven wrong. And so,
Yeah.
and so at that point, I was like, if I want to be serious about this, I gotta be strict in what I'm looking for.
Now, Ed, just so maybe some of the listeners understand, there's no right or wrong Enneagram personality. It's really, what's the personality and what does the job entail, right?
Right. It's more so what type fits best the demands of the position. And it's, part of the Enneagram helps, and you said it best through discussion, Doug. Part of the Enneagram helps put the right people on the right seat of the bus. And I think making sure people are on the right seat of the bus also helps greatly with employee retention. Because if they're not seated on that right spot, they may not feel like they belong, and they may try to keep looking for a job where they do feel belonged. And I would hate for anyone to miss out on a great opportunity working with Precision Door, just because they didn't feel like they were in the right spot in their position.
Yeah, so you could test out high in a certain category, and I know there's 9 different categories, and each category has a name attached to it: a perfectionist, a giver, or a helper, they call one, or a performer, or individualist, or like I know there's 9 different categories, and you could test out really high for a certain category, and it might make you a great fit as a technician going to homeowners' houses and trying to help them with, let's say, repairing the garage door, right?
Yep.
Whereas another person would want a whole different personality profile because they're an accountant, and they're going to be sitting at a desk, and they're going to be working with numbers, and they got to make sure those numbers are accurate and detailed, and so you might be looking for a whole different personality profile then.
100%, yes.
Yeah. So Ed, share with us, what does it entail? I actually know the answer to this, but share with us, what does it entail? How long does the test take? Is there a cost to doing this test? Like, share with me a little bit more about that.
Yep. So the test is relatively very cheap. It's $12 a test. And it does take about, on the fast end, 45 minutes, and on the slow end, up to an hour, depending on the test taker. But it's a pretty extensive test.
Yeah, I think 140 some odd questions, right?
144, I believe.
Yeah. And by the way, I've taken the test too.
Yeah.
And I know my profile, and I did kind of the same thing you did. I've been in sales great portion of my life, where we're in front of homeowners and talking to them about a solution to their problem, and had success obviously all my life doing that. And so I was looking at it and trying to figure out what's my personality profile. And then I'm sitting going, if I know I can do it, I hire other people like myself, that they have probably a pretty good chance of being able to do it also.
Yeah. It's before the Enneagram, you kind of wonder, like, am I the only person like this out there? Like, you know, some people just may think of themselves like I'm different or I'm unique. And you'll find with the Enneagram results that some people, their highest scores may be 19, 20, 21. And then there's unique individuals who their highest scores rank 24, 25, 26, 27 points. And these people, you know, they a lot of who they are focused on a specific personality type, and they may stand out from the rest of society, or may think of themselves that they stand out from the rest of society because people may not be as, before the Enneagram, strong-minded as they are, or strong-willed as they are, or strong intuitive as they are. And the Enneagram kind of helps you learn that, like, okay, so I am like these specific score results, and I'll use myself for example. You know, I scored 25 points as a type 8 challenger, and you know, I would ask myself, why do I feel like that I'm the only technician that cares about every job and their call average of every job and making sure the customer takes care, like the customer is taken care of at every job? Like, I feel like I'm the only technician in this company that does that. Because there could be another technician that says it's 5 o'clock, I'm just going to go in, fix the issue, and leave. And I'm like, no, it's whether it's 5 o'clock or 10 o'clock, you know, you want to be there.
You want to get it right.
You want to make it right, you know, take care of the customer as you would your first call of the day. And like, it kind of just helps bring understanding to these employees may not just process things the way that I process things. And I live my life in a more of a habitual way. And so that's what I was kind of looking for, is other people like myself, just like you said, who, if I can find other people whose scores are very similar to myself, then I would have people who would care as much as I would care to run the business. And if my results, like, you know, I have to be humbled, right? So if my results, if I find that I have a weakness in a specific area, I could hire somebody that I know that the business needs, who has a strength in, to where they can help carry the business. And I think Steven's great with that, because, you know, me being a high type 8, I'm very, I run the business off of my gut instincts, because 8, 9, 1s, they process information and process their life through their gut. 2, 3, 4s process their life and information through their heart, and 5, 6, 7s process and live their life through information and facts and data, right? And so when you're building a business, you know, you have employees, you have to build those relationships. And as a type 8, I can be blunt sometimes and like, hey, let's just do the work. And Steven, being a strong type 3, is just like, okay, well, you can't say it that way. You have to, kind of have to, I don't want to say hold their hand while you tell them, but you have to say it in a way where they feel inspired. And so Steven is a great strength where I'm weak, because I'm more of a go-getter, and Steven's more of a, hey, let's not lose or fracture relationships along the way.
Yeah. So every style, Enneagram style, probably has a spot in your organization depending upon the job that they're doing, right? And
Yes.
it's good to have balance and have different types of people in your organization, but you want to make sure on the right seat on the bus, as we talked.
Yes. At the end of the day, that's what matters, is making sure you're on the right seat of the bus.
Ed, share with the audience about, obviously they get a personality profile, one of 9 numbers, but there's also a healthy, an unhealthy, and I'll say a normal, is I think the way they call it, personality. Like, share with everybody a little bit about that. I think that's an important piece.
Yep. So the Enneagram, every personality type, they have your average types, your above average types, and your below average types. And it kind of, using adjectives describes, what the average personality type is, what the above average personality types is, and what the below average personality types. I'll use myself for an example, and I'll give the proper terminology. So, like, you know, at their best, the above average personality types for type eights, they're strong, direct, they're courageous, they're great leaders. Average eights, um, they are how do I describe average eights?
So
They are, go ahead.
yeah, that's right. So when you say average, above average, whatever, isn't it really like a state, like your state that you're in? In other words,
You're
I
talking about
might be a
levels of
really
development?
healthy eight right now. I might be like, because everything is going well in my life, but hey, something bad happens in your life, and you become, I'll say, maybe in an unhealthy state at that time. It could be something like you're just, I don't know, maybe you had some kind of tragedy happen in your life.
Gotcha.
Yeah, right. And then all of a sudden you're not at your best, and you go
Yep.
into an unhealthy state, and you act out and you act differently when you're in that kind of state.
Yep.
Correct.
I apologize, Doug. Yes. So the 10 levels of development, I believe, is what you're referring to. So Enneagram, all 9 personality types, they have the 10 levels of development. And in my hiring process, I kind of focus, like, when I know their Enneagram type, I may ask them questions to figure out where they fall on the 10 levels of development. And they have 3 of them, 3 levels, 8, 9, 10 are the healthiest levels of development. 5, 6, 7 are the average levels of development. And then 1, 2, 3, 4s are like the unhealthy levels of development. And it kind of talks about, you have this personality type, and you can kind of gauge where they're at in life by figuring out what level of development they're on. And obviously, the unhealthy levels of development, they'll have a lot of negative traits about themselves. And the very healthy levels of development, they carry a lot of healthy traits about themselves. And it all dictates how they're handling life in that moment. If they have personal issues going on, if they have work issues going along, it gauges where they fall on that range between healthy and unhealthy levels of development.
So in theory, you classified yourself as an 8, and that it's a good fit for like a technician in your company.
Mhm.
But if he's in an unhealthy state, it might not work out. You have to
Oh man,
understand that also.
I would be a pain in the butt technician if I was an unhealthy 8. An unhealthy 8, I would be arguing with my superiors. I would be challenging my superiors. I would be questioning my superiors. And I wouldn't do it privately. I wouldn't care if I was doing it privately or publicly. I would be rude, and I would think that, I have a right to feel this way, when I don't have a right to feel that way.
Yeah,
But
and I appreciate the way you just explained that, because you can have an 8 who is a star performer, like just incredible person, and then you can have another 8, and because they're not in a great state, or they have something going on in their life and they're under duress or stress or something like that, and they're acting out, and you're going to be going, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into with this
yeah,
person? So you need to not only know what personality style they are, but where are they in their like 1 to 10
levels
health.
of development. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that's the beautiful part about it, because I think, before the Enneagram, I was that person that if an employee acted out and, their behavior was unacceptable, all right, there's a door. I was very blunt to the point. And I think now that I have an understanding from an Enneagram aspect, I can at least do what I can do in the realms of what I'm able to try to redeem that employee, because the unhealthy and healthy levels of development, that can switch on a dime. That can turn around in a day. It's just a matter of being knowledgeable and aware of where they're at on their levels of development, and if they're willing to uncover stuff with you, as a leader, you can help turn that around and help put them in a better mood. I recently just had an 8 who a type 8 tech who was doing real well with his call average, and his call average started to dip. And we had a conversation. I pulled up his Enneagram results, did my own self-calculation of where does he fall in his levels of development. I figured he was at this point. And so I pulled him into the office and we had a 2-hour conversation. And then the very next day, his call average jumped back up $500 and he started to do really well again. And it's all because we came down to what the root of the issues were. And I approached it the way that his Enneagram style needed to be approached. And, it was a very constructive conversation we had, and we had a clear path moving forward beyond that conversation. And it kind of rebuilt trust there.
Yeah. It's funny because, you could have a guy working in a healthy state, like for a very long period of time, and then something goes wrong and you're going, what's going on? And there's normally something happened in their life. It could be, like I said, a death in the family, or for that matter, it could be like his dog died, and he's depressed. Yeah. He's depressed and he doesn't. And so he goes into this like totally different state. And if you can understand that, then you can help them get out of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. We're as owners, as leaders, we're meant to have the business thrive in the best ways possible. And, you only get that if your employees are thriving, and you can only have your employee thrive as much as they allow you to let them thrive. Right. And I think, with Steven being very focused on relationships in the business, he's helped grow me in many ways on how to build tangible relationships with all the employees, to where one, they can trust me and let me in, and help with anything that they maybe personally have going on, or if I'm unable to help, get them the right help that they need.
Yeah. So just for the audience, I'm not sure that we clarified it. Steven's your business partner.
Yes.
Right. And yep. Totally different type personality than you too. Right. So
Yep.
Different Absolutely. Perspective, and mm-hmm. a good person probably to bounce ideas off of and have a different kind of way of approaching things. So
yes. Yep.
Ed, talk about the culture of your business. How has Enneagram affected that, if at all?
The Enneagram's greatly affected the culture of the business. When I got more serious with the Enneagram in the business and looking for specific types, I hired a lot of like-minded individuals and people who process stuff very similarly. So one, that made it easier to talk to those people. Because if I hired people just like myself, with scores similar to myself, I'm speaking to them as if I want to be talked to. And it helped natural conversation flow easier. And people were inspired in a very similar way, right? And so the way that it helped the culture is that when I express a vision or an idea to everybody, they would buy onto it relatively quickly because they all process information in a very similar way. They all believe the same vision more easily, and they all, think of themselves as, I'm here to elevate this business. That's how a lot of my guys think, that we're here to bring this company to the next step. And here's Eddie giving us this idea. If this is what I feel in my heart is true, then I got to be on board with this. And when it comes to the technicians, we'll use those for an example, and sales training, everyone kind of process things similarly. Like we may do some role plays on sales meetings, and before the Enneagram, I would be the only one shouting, pause, let's go over this certain process in the sales, in the role play. And now I'm silent and everyone else is saying pause, 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 because they're all thinking alike. And it's gotten to the point where it's just like, I already know what I did wrong, man. Like as soon as I said it, I know. And
Yeah.
and so and it's a good culture. It's a healthy competition that everyone has, type eights, they like competition. And so, my main focus, the number one score I'm looking for when I look for technicians are type eights. And they like healthy competition. And as long as I can create a healthy environment, all of them can thrive and succeed together. And the Enneagram is helping me find people who all think alike to put them all together instead of finding, 5 personality types that I think may not go well with techs. I can find different positions for those personality types, but keep all similar personality types that I look for that would thrive in this position as techs, and then they all function and think alike.
Yeah. So we have 40 some odd technicians in our organization right now, and we have a lot of eights also that do this, but we have a lot of other personality styles too. And we still have some of them are like really good performers also, but you have to know how to like talk to them, because sometimes you talk to them differently than you would an eight. And
Yes.
and so knowing all the people, it's not per se you got to have all eights as technicians, but knowing what type of personality style they are, and it helps you to be able to know how to have a conversation with them that affects them in the right way, right? And so that's important too, right?
No, it's and I don't think we touched base on it, but the Enneagram is such a huge leadership tool and such a huge management tool. I use it for hiring, but I also use it to have conversations with my employees. And it's a good blueprint that you have about that specific employee's life, that you can look through their test results and figure out, okay, so this is how this person truly feels. Let me approach it from this sensitive area instead of sitting them in my office and thinking, hey, you need to do better, blah, 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 go do better now. And it's used as a tool that's designed that when you have that conversation with that employee, when that employee leaves that conversation, they're thinking, wow, Ed, he really understands me. He really gets me. I really feel motivated from that conversation. Not my boss is such a jerk. He's just an asshole. Why would I want to work hard for that guy? Right. And so that's just another advantage that the Enneagram has to offer for managers and leaders who truly take advantage of it.
So when we had that Northeast meeting that I was talking about, and I heard you get up and start talking about this, I thought it was a fascinating topic. I was like, wow, this is interesting. This could solve a huge problem of, trying to get the right people into the business and right seat on the bus. And it was a fascinating thing. And I came to you sometime after that meeting. I don't remember, not immediately, but pretty soon after that meeting, and started asking you questions. And you told me, I said, how am I going to learn this about Enneagram? How am I going to understand it better? Because you understand it to a very high level, because you've been studying it for a lot of years. And I wanted to try to get on the same page and caught up to you to be able to understand this. And you recommended a book to me. And for the life of me, it's escaping me the name of the book. Do you remember it off the top of your head?
Yep. The Road Back to You by Ian Cron.
Thank you. I've read so many books, and I just could not remember it. But I listened to that book on an audio book thing, and I listened to it 3 times, like to be able to try to understand this. And it was a huge step for us in our business. One of the crazy things that came out of it, though, for me, I found that when you tell somebody that they're applying for a job that we'd like you to take a I'm not going to use the word test because it's not a test. It's a, what's the word I want to use? I don't know. It helps profile you, but I'm trying to remember how we classified. We don't like to call it a test though, but um, when they're done taking this, it takes about an hour or so to take 144 questions, as you said. And people that are not serious about the job will never take the test. There's people, yeah, send it to me. You send it to them, they don't take it.
Yep.
And so you immediately eliminate people that are not serious about the thing.
Yeah.
That so I found that's a kind of like a weed out tool in some ways to be able to weed out people that are not serious.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a recruiter on staff right now that we hired. Her name is Kelly, and she gives this test, and she's then evaluating what type of profile they are. And there are certain, like if we're looking for a technician and there are certain style, we're going to immediately rule them out. That's not for that position. We're not going to hire them for that position. We might say, oh, that's a great thing for a different position that we have, and we could do that. But we're basically eliminating them from our further conversations. And so we find it's a really great tool to get to those serious candidates.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. And I actually recently just changed my approach style when it came to hiring. I was talking to Brandon a few weeks ago, and he recommended this book called Start With Why. And I'm not sure if you've had the chance to read it yourself, but I listen to audiobooks, so I had to listen to it a few times to remember everything about it. But I had this aha moment when he was talking about how the adventurers traveling the Arctic, how they went through a unpleasant season, and you'd think that there's no chance anyone's going to get out of it alive, and they all survived these treacherous conditions. And it all came down to how he approached the ad, and he took a different direction when he made the ad in the paper of who the people he was looking for. And my aha moment was, well, dang it, like I need to do that when I make Indeed applicants, right? Let me speak to the Enneagram style that I'm looking for. And I used to go through like 80 applicants just to find 5 people to call to bring in. And I changed the tone in my Indeed ads. And all of a sudden, I would get 10 people submitting an application a day. And now there's like 2 or 3 people submitting an application a day.
Yeah, that's a great story. A great story. And I know the story you're talking about. It was a guy that was going to the Arctic, and he described that I want to hire people to come on the ship with me. You have to be prepared to work 20 hours a day, get very little sleep, be willing to like suffer like frostbite and cold, and like it did not sound like a glamorous job.
But it's adventurous. The adventure is wild, and your name, you'll get credit for the surprises or all the stuff that their findings are. You'll have credit, and you'll go down in infamy along this adventure. And he attracted like-minded individuals who craved that adventure. And I was like, man, I got to do that when I'm posting my ads out, because right now I'm advertising, this is Precision Door, this is how much money you can make, submit an application. And I'm getting a lot of people that I think that would fit better somewhere else in the business, right? And now I just word it differently for the technicians that I'm looking for. And now I'm getting people who are submitting applications, and now they're following up, right? Which is a crazy part, where they're sending emails and, hey, I submitted my application. Did you get it? I love an opportunity to sit down and talk with you guys. And at that point, it's like, wow, so I can speak to different Enneagram styles through my Indeed application and have the right people actually submit applications and then bring them in for an interview.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah,
That's interesting, right?
it takes up, it saves a whole lot of time because like I said, before that book, I was getting 80 applicants a week, and now I'm getting 15 great applicants a week, and maybe 5 of those applicants would be perfect as a technician. And so and you can do that for customer service. You can do that for a business controller. You can do that for a call center. You can do that for technicians, installers. There's a lot of different ways you can speak to the Enneagram style that you're looking to hire just in a job ad that makes people want to gravitate towards it. So it's pretty interesting stuff. I recently, like I said, maybe about 7 days ago, I changed the ad, and it was like a night and day difference of the applicants I was getting.
Wow. I'm going to talk to you further about that off camera.
That sounds great.
That's good. That's interesting, Ed. I did read that book. Starts with a Y.
Starts with Y. Simon Sinek, right?
Yep, Simon Sinek. Excellent
Yep.
book. Business owner.
Yep.
Excellent book to be able to read or listen to. We are actually making changes in our business because of that book. We'll save that for another episode sometime in the future.
I'm gonna have to talk to you off camera about that.
Yeah. So, is there anything you'd like to like close with? Any final thoughts that you might have that might help a customer? I have one that I want to put out there for people. But is there anything that you'd like to finish with?
So, Doug, you kind of touch a little bit of base on it. You listen to the book 3 times. The Enneagram, it's not as something that can be as easily comprehending as disc profile is. And I know that disc profile has been the staple with Precision Door for the longest time. And disc profile has a lot of its strengths. The Enneagram is very deep. There's a lot of information to uncover. There's a lot of repeats. You have to listen to it over and over. And you really have to dig in deep for a lot of answers. And it's not something that people can understand at a surface level. And if they try to understand it at a surface level, they'll head in the wrong direction. The Enneagram, it takes time, and it takes a lot of trial and error to get close to perfection with. And I've been doing the Enneagram for 4 years now, and I'm still learning a lot about the Enneagram that I wish I'd known 1 or 2 years ago. So it's not, if you want to do the Enneagram right, you gotta understand that you gotta put in the work to do the Enneagram right. And it can save, if done right, it can save thousands of dollars when it comes to hiring employees and keeping employees. It's the knowledge it has can save so much time, so much headache, and so much money. And
that was almost ditto to what I was gonna say. Almost ditto. I was gonna say, if you're gonna do this, you got to take the deep dive. You got to go and you got to study it a little bit. You really need to dive in. Yeah. But it is a worthwhile, as a business owner, it's a worthwhile investment to make.
Yeah.
Because hiring the wrong people for the wrong jobs is just a lot more painful than spending the time and getting to understand this and utilizing this tool.
Yeah.
To be able to make your business better, have a better culture.
Yeah.
Be more profitable. Like, just make things work smoother in your
work. It's used to better hire, used to better manage, used to better build culture, and used for better retention. And I think I've mentioned this before, Doug. I don't let my guys know about the Enneagram, right? They only hear about it in the interviews, but I don't Enneagram's not talked about in my business like it's talked about, like DISC is talked about. I can see the strengths that Enneagram has to offer, but I didn't want to give my employees a way out of a reason like, oh, that customer was a type 8. That's why they didn't buy. And, I use it as a very surface level to the employee. And once they're hired and on board and through the training, they probably never hear me speak of the Enneagram ever again.
Yeah, so that's a great point. The way we're using it is obviously to go through the hiring process, but our leadership team
Yeah.
actually does understand Enneagram. We're trying to get them to understand, because when you have like 45 technicians, we have supervisors and people that are responsible to understanding the personnel they have working under them, and to be able to talk to them appropriately. But we're not going to the individual employee and saying, "Oh, we know you're an 8 or 7 or 2 or whatever." And we don't dive into it. We know it from the beginning because they go through this test, and it helps us to be able to help them. But we're not diving deep into the number with them either. But our management team, we do that.
No, and that makes sense. When I have a managing team, it makes sense to introduce them into it, get them involved in it, have better understanding, so that way, as a shared team, they can better manage the rest of the company.
Yeah. So if you don't know, Enneagram is spelled Enneagram, Enneagram. It's sometimes even looking it up. It was hard for me when I first tried to find it. But if you do that, you look into Amazon or whatever, you can find the book in both audio and print version, and you are on a good step to improving your hiring and employee retention and productivity of your staff when you do that. Ed, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. I appreciate so many of the Precision Door guys willing to share things that help make them successful. I'm looking forward to meeting with you again in the near future. Thank you for joining us today at A2O Digital.
It's a real pleasure to be here, Doug. Thank you very much.
All right. Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you as well. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Home Service Contractor Blueprint. Don't forget to leave a review and subscribe so you can stay up to date on home service trends.